Hello and welcome to Monday's Granada Reports, live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello there, on the programme this evening.
For her to go out to see the Christmas lights and never return. I still don't think it's actually happened.
On what would have been her 14th birthday, Ava White's family talk exclusively about tackling knife crime.
It's all over for Frank Lampard at Everton, out after just 3 wins and 20 Premier League games.
Better late than never. The first of Merseyrail's new trains, delayed by years, takes to the rails at last.
We're in Wigan, where someone special is celebrating their 125th birthday. Here's your clue.
And milder air moving over the region, but is it time to put away your woolly jumpers? I'll have the answer later in the programme.
So please stay with us for all of that. First tonight, the mother of a schoolgirl who was stabbed to death in Liverpool says she paid the price of standing up for herself. Ava White was just 12 when she was stabbed in the neck by a 14-year-old boy she didn't know.
Ava had gone to the Christmas light switch on in Liverpool when her mum was told she'd been stabbed. Last July, the boy convicted of her murder was sentenced to life to serve a minimum of 13 years.
ITV News reporter Kelly Foran spoke exclusively to Ava White. Kelly, the family should have been celebrating Ava's birthday today.
Yeah, it's a really sad day today for Ava's family, as it is every day. You'll see from these clips how clear it is, the unimaginable pain that they're living through every single day. As you mentioned, Ava was just 12 years old when she was stabbed to death in Liverpool city centre, and it was a crime that not only shook Liverpool but anybody who heard about it, with Ava being so young. Her mum, Leanne, has never spoken to the media since about what happened, but she wanted to talk to us to remember Ava on her birthday.
She was caring, full of loving. Daredevil. She loved the fair. She'd do anything for anyone. She just had a heart of gold. She was a joker. She loved the pranks, didn't she? Yeah. For her to go out to see the Christmas lights and never return. I still don't think it's actually happened. Makes sense. I don't really like being around people anymore. I don't like anyone really coming to me house, so I'm always on my own or with Mia.
It is heartbreaking to hear, heartbreaking for the family, and they've also been speaking about the killer's sentence and when he could be released.
Yeah, so the boy was 14 at the time when he killed Ava. We can't name him because of his age, but because of that, the fact that he was just a young child, he was tried and sentenced in that way. As you mentioned earlier, he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 13 years. Now, that could mean when he's due to be released from prison, he could still be in his 20s. Now, that's something that for Leanne and Mia and the rest of Ava's family, that is incredibly difficult for them to have to come to terms with.
He was old enough to know what he was doing. He was old enough to know he shouldn't be walking around with a knife. He was old enough to know he shouldn't have pulled it out and stabbed Ava in the neck. He took her life, so he should spend his life in jail.
We're in a knife pandemic. We all need to take these things on board.
Ava's sister Mia describing knife crime there as a pandemic, and the family want a lot more to be done.
They do want a lot more to be done, but they want to do it themselves now as well. I remember at the trial, Mia stood up and spoke in court in her victim impact statement about even then how she wanted to go and talk to young people about the dangers of carrying knives. They've set up now the Ava White Foundation, and they're really determined to make sure that no other family has to go through the pain that they quite clearly are living through every single day. They've raised enough money for 50 bleed packs, their first aid kits, so that the members of the public can help with stab wounds, and they're also really keen now to go into schools across Merseyside and talk to young people themselves about the dangers of knives.
To hopefully reduce knife crime and violent crimes. Go round and teach the kids, educate them that this is not okay, this is not a world that we should be living in, we shouldn't be doing this to each other.
I just want to know what the big fascination is. What is it? What makes you so tough about putting a knife in your pocket to other people?
Leanne said it's still really difficult for her actually to go into schools and to speak to young children, but she is so determined now moving forward to make a difference with the Ava White Foundation, you know, in Ava's name and in Ava's memory.
OK, well, Kelly, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. And the foundation always value a life, Ava, of course. Thank you. Next, the latest developments in a turbulent period for Everton Football Club.
Yeah, manager Frank Lampard has reportedly been sacked, with the club's second bottom of the Premier League.
Live now to our sports correspondent David Chisnell. This news yet to be confirmed by the club itself tonight, David.
Yeah, that's right, Elaine. No official confirmation, but we understand that Frank Lampard has lost his job here at Everton less than a year into his reign here at Goodison Park. A run of 3 defeats or 3 wins in 20 Premier League games has actually seen the club now slip to second bottom of the table. That the club is searching for a 7th permanent manager in 7 years. Of course, it was 2016 that Farhad Bashiri actually took over at this club. There is a lot of anger amongst the fans. We've been speaking to some of them today, and they clearly are not happy with the majority shareholder or the club's board of directors.
They're a disgrace. I followed them all my life. They're terrible. And the people who run it, I wouldn't let them run a chip shop.
There's a lot of people to blame in there. Obviously, it's the board because they have the decision over the managers. But the players have got a lot to answer for as well. The players are not standing up and being accounted for. They're hardened. They're going into harden. And we need them to be there for us.
So, David, who do you think Everton are likely to turn to now? Some might actually want to ask if anyone would fancy the job right now.
Well, that's right. You just look at the turnover of managers that they've had here in recent years. They've tried it all, really, haven't they? They've gone for experience, they've gone for youth. But if you just look at some of the candidates who are being linked as the favourites for the job, we've got the former Burnley boss, Sean Dyche. He's been out of work since he was sacked by Burnley last April. Could he be coming back into the frame, and could he be coming back here to now try and lead Everton's push to avoid relegation? And then if you look at it, there's someone who's well connected to this club as well, Wayne Rooney. How about if he was to come back? Of course, he burst onto the scene here, didn't he, as a 16-year-old when he made his debut for the club. Could he now come back? He is currently the head coach over at DC United in America at the Major Soccer League side over there. And then, of course, you've also got the likes of Duncan Ferguson being linked with it, former Leeds manager Bielsa as well, he's being linked with it. And could David Moyes also come back as well? Of course, he's at West Ham at the moment, so unlikely for there. But as you say, whoever is going to come here has a job to do. Everton facing relegation, the first time they could be relegated from the top flight since 1951.
OK, David at Goodison, thanks very much.
There's a stark warning tonight from striking health workers in the northwest who say their disputes could intensify and go on for months.
Yes, union leaders joined ambulance staff on picket lines in Liverpool and Lancashire as staff walked out for the 3rd time in the row over pay and staff shortages.
Nurses, midwives and porters are also among the staff on strike at 2 hospital trusts in Liverpool. Victoria Grimes reports.
What do we want? Fair pay! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Fair pay! When do we want it? Now!
It's 5 weeks since ambulance staff first walked out on strike. Today, there were more picket lines, more cars honking their horns in support, and more headaches for the government, who union leaders say still aren't listening.
We need some movement in terms of an offer, and at the moment they keep saying constructive talks. First of all, there are no constructive talks, and secondly, I can't put constructive talks on the ballot paper. It's not an option to be balloted on. What they need to do is to come back to the negotiating table, put a proper offer for these workers, they will be balloted on it, and everyone can go back to work.
Well, those here on the picket line in Chorley today acknowledge that it will cause some disruption. They're still providing what they call life and limb cover. That means that if there's a life-threatening emergency somewhere, then staff who are here on this picket line will go and they will respond. But they say that the conditions for patients are so bad across the NHS that this is the only way they can be heard. And it's patients, not pay, that's priority.
We're here to provide a service, to look after people, and at the minute it feels like we're failing everyone. And we're seeing more and more that we're having to care outside on the back of an ambulance, which isn't ideal for a critically ill patient still waiting to get in because there's physically no space to get into the hospital. And some of these people are dying while outside, waiting.
And what's the longest you've had to wait outside hospital?
A full shift, a full 12 hours to get in.
There will be patients that have called us that were alive when that call was made. We can't get there for an hour or two, and we get there and these patients are deceased. And that's the worst of it. It's heartbreaking. I've seen nurses in emergency departments and paramedics in tears mid-shift because they can't cope with this. We go home drained, mentally and physically drained because of this. And you've got to pull it all together and come in the next day and do it all again. But it takes its toll, you know. So we're seeing retention issues and difficult to get people to work in a system that's, as I say, is actively causing harm to patients.
Ambulance staff aren't the only health workers on picket lines today. Unison members from some hospitals in Liverpool also walked out and say they're prepared to do so again. In a statement, the Department of Health said they'd had constructive discussions with unions about the pay review process, and they're keen to continue talking about what's affordable and fair, including wider concerns around the cost of living, pay conditions and workload. But with further action already announced across 4 dates in February and March, it appears the end isn't yet in sight. Victoria Grimes, ITV News, Chorley.
Well, earlier I spoke to Unison's Dale Ollier, who was on the picket line outside Aintree Hospital this afternoon, and I asked what effect the strike was having there.
So the impact of the action is that not only have you got the normal action that we've seen from the ambulance dispute, but you've also got planned operations and elective care cancelled, not just today but in the run up to the action, because the staff simply won't be in there to look after the patients.
We're hearing the support from motorists going past, but this is the third strike and more on the way. Is there a danger if patients' lives are going to be put at risk that support will wane?
Lives are not being put at risk. Unison's provided life and limb cover both for a North West Ambulance Service and at the 4 hospitals that are out today. That's Aintree, the Royal, Broad Green and Liverpool Heart and Chest. So there is life and limb cover. It's the elective care, it's the non-emergency care, the appointments that have been cancelled, and the public support has been overwhelming, and I believe it will continue until the public are satisfied that their NHS is properly staffed and that the staff that are caring for them are paid properly.
Now, this is a dispute over pay, but will pay solve the problems in the NHS?
Pay will go a long way to solving the problems when you have the pressures that our members face, and they've got jobs in the local economy that frankly pay better and are often less pressured. You know, we've heard that 350,000 patients last year had to wait more than 12 hours in A&E. That's the kind of pressure that our members are working under, and they simply don't get paid enough.
Isn't there a danger you're playing into the hands of those who want to see privatisation, with some former ministers this weekend talking about charging for some services?
No, I don't think that's true at all. To the contrary, I actually think that these people standing behind me are fighting for the NHS as we know it.
What's your message to patients who rely on your care and see this as a very, very frightening time?
I understand that people might be frightened given the headlines that they're seeing in the news. What I will say to anyone who's listening today is that Unison has provided life and limb cover. We're in constant contact with the hospitals. We're on the side of the public, we're on the side of the patients, and the public and the patients that we've spoken to today are well aware of that.
Now, you're asking for double what the government's offered. Are you and your members prepared to compromise given the economic climate?
We've said from day one that we're prepared to compromise. What we want is to see our members able to survive a cost of living crisis, and also to feel that the remuneration for their jobs is worth them staying in the NHS and delivering the patient care that we so desperately need, and to clear the backlog. You know, our members here, they don't want to be out on strike, they want to be in work and they want to be paid fairly for doing that.
Dale Ollier at Aintree, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
A man's been found guilty of robbing Olympic cyclist Mark Cavendish and his wife of high-value watches in a knife-point raid at their home. Intruders broke into the Manx cyclist's house in November 2021 and threatened to stab him and his wife Peta. They took 2 watches with a combined value of £700,000. Today, Romario Henry from London was found guilty of 2 counts of robbery. His co-defendant, Oladewa Okosobo, who's 28, was cleared by the jury.
A health watchdog says many GP surgeries on the Isle of Man have failed to meet all of its standards. 12 of 13 surgeries inspected on the island didn't meet the Care Quality Commission standards. Issues were found with support for long-term conditions and storing medicine, although the regulator says it doesn't mean the surgeries are unsafe.
Now to some good news for rail passengers. You did hear that right. It's not something we say very often, but today a new fleet of high-spec trains took to the tracks on Merseyside.
Yes, the multi-million-pound publicly owned trains have been a long time coming, years in fact, but the rollout was delayed by the pandemic and industrial action.
Anna Yosef was there when the first new train set off, and set off on time.
We're all used to delayed trains these days, but passengers in Liverpool have been waiting a long time for this one. Merseyrail's new £500 million fleet was ordered for the Liverpool City region in 2016, but delivery's been delayed by floods, COVID and industrial disputes. Today saw the first of the publicly owned trains enter into service, so was it worth the wait?
Travelling on one of these shiny new Class 777 trains is a very different experience if you're used to being a Merseyrail train passenger. There's space for 50% more passengers, wider seats, free Wi-Fi, plugs, USB points and live communication boards.
The 52-strong fleet, which will replace the current 40-year-old rolling stock, also has step-free access for wheelchair users and passengers with bikes or buggies.
This is the physical manifestation of all of those years of planning and is an indication of what we want for our public transport system in the Liverpool City region. So these trains, for me, are symbolic of the new technical age that we're going to move our public transport system into. You know, more better trains, more reliable trains, but these linking in with the buses and the new ferries.
These trains, they're state-of-the-art, but the big question is, how are you going to run new trains on an old and failing infrastructure?
Because we've made improvements to the infrastructure, so there have been upgrades to the power supply, for instance, to some of the signalling, to most of the platforms. The whole thing has cost an arm and a leg, but it's because the people in the Liverpool City region are not second-class citizens.
Brilliant. So just coming from Central to where we are now, it's been smooth, it's been quiet, and it's been brilliant.
Travelling with a baby in a buggy, it's not always the easiest. Do you think this is going to make journeys easier for you?
Yeah, definitely. Like, this is apparently we're the first to sit down in the new space where you can lift the seats up and have the pram with us as well.
Just a nicer environment to be in, got all the modern cons, and more than anything, the access, the level access, I think.
Oh, I think they're lovely, and the windows are very big, isn't it, and better, and they're smoother and quieter.
It's nice, it's posh, dead posh. It helps, like if your phone's nearly dead and you need to get in touch with people, so you can do it, like when you're on the go.
The full fleet should be operating on the network within the next 15 months. After the lengthy delays, passengers will be hoping for a smooth journey ahead. Anna Yosef, ITV News, Liverpool.
Burnley are now 18 points clear of the Championship's playoff places and looking certain for promotion. Hoping to join them are their two neighbours. Preston are just 2 points outside of the top six after their 2-1 win at Birmingham, while Blackburn Rovers were held to a 1-1 draw by Bristol City but remain fourth in the table. In boxing, Liverpool's Liam Smith says he's open to a fight with former welterweight world champion Kell Brook after his impressive win at the weekend. He knocked down Chris Eubank Jr. twice in round 4 to the delight of a full house at Manchester's AO Arena. The referee then stopped the fight, although a dazed Eubank did his best to carry on. There was a rematch clause in the contract, so we can expect them to go toe-to-toe again later this year, while Manchester's Jack Massey can expect some big fights at cruiserweight after impressing on his heavyweight debut, losing on points to former world champion Joseph Parker. Finally, to a double success on the slopes for two Northwest Alpine stars. Lancashire's Dave Riding won silver in the slalom at the World Cup event at Kitzbühel. He set the fastest time on his second run to move up 13 places and take second. And there was glory too for Mia Brooks from Sandbach. The 16-year-old snowboarder is in her first season at World Cup level and claimed her first podium finish in Switzerland with silver in the slopestyle event. Isn't it amazing that we have such great skiing and snowboarding stars in an area like we've got in the northwest with no snow?
Yeah, Sandbach. Known for
Sandbach,
its snow and its
flat.
mountains
Not exactly hilly, yeah.
Absolutely not, but it makes it all the sweeter, doesn't it?
Fantastic.
Brilliant, thank you.
And here's Mary with details of what's on the ITV news.
Coming up in the programme, the PM admits there are questions to be answered about Nadeem Sahawi's tax affairs. Downing Street said today the Tory chair would face an ethics probe, but there are growing calls for him to be sacked. Also on the programme, a man's found guilty of a knife-point robbery at the home of cycling champion Mark Cavendish. The energy regulator vows to investigate why so many households are being forced onto prepayment meters and... Find out why Beyoncé is facing criticism after her first major concert in years. Do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Something to do with an eye-watering fee there, but we're heading to the historic town of Wigan for one of its big success stories.
Yeah, the town boasts Wigan Pier, the spiritual home of Northern Soul, and the famous Uncle Joe's mint balls.
Each year, over 30 million sweets are sent out all over the world, and the company is celebrating its 125th anniversary.
It's a lot of sweets. Paul Crone has been finding out what, if anything, has changed since they first rolled off the production line.
The old adage of if it ain't broke, don't fix it has certainly worked a treat for sweet making in Wigan. In a small factory on a little street in the town, Uncle Joe's mint balls have been made here since 1919. And in total, the Fiery Beasts are celebrating their 125th anniversary. The great-nephews of the company founder William Santos, Anthony and John Wynnard, now run the business. The confectionery kings say they love coming to work in a building with so much history.
In my office I do, yeah, because it's just as it was in the old days, and I keep on finding things in my office, in drawers and all sorts of places. To follow our father, grandfather, and back to our great-great-uncle. So, yeah, there's lots of stories. Some we can tell, some we can't.
This morning, the Mayor of Wigan was given a guided tour. And what's this? She even managed to sample a nifty treat in the process.
It's a local company, employs local people, and it's just absolutely amazing that the company has stayed in the borough of Wigan for so many years and continues to be such a success, not just locally, but internationally as well.
A process, incidentally, which has hardly changed over time. The ingredients are simple, but one of them is still a closely guarded secret. Would you tell me?
Depends. Everybody's got a price.
So what with a secret ingredient and the 125th anniversary, I'm amazed no one's ever written a song about the mint balls.
They have!
Hey?
They have!
Apparently they have.
Oh, Uncle Joe's mint balls keep you all aglow. Give 'em to your granny and watch the beggar go. Away with coughs and sniffles, take a few in hand. Suck 'em and see, you'll agree they're the best in all the land.
And the mint balls look set to continue running off the assembly line for hopefully another 125 years. Sweet. Paul Crone, ITV News, Wigan.
Look at the size of that one.
Yeah. Love the song too. Let's get the weather. Here's Ross.
Why do I need a shower? I've been out in the rain.
The faster you go, the sooner you'll be out. You'll save water too.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Hello, good evening. As we've started the week, there's more in the way of clouds, some drizzle in the mix as well. Having said that, we have seen some brighter breaks and variable clouds coming and going as we head through the next few days. Mostly dry, mostly calm as well, but also not as cold. It has been a slow process, but gradually milder air has been moving its way in from the northwest. However, the colder air down towards the southeast is still fringing into the region at times, particularly overnight, and return some frost and ice for some. But high pressure is in control through the next couple of days, keeping things on the calmer side. It's not until Wednesday we're just going to see a front moving its way down from the north. That'll hit the high pressure. The rainfall on it will tend to turn a bit patchier, but the winds pick up a little bit as well. A slightly fresher feel as we head into Thursday. For now, though, you can see that real divide as we make our way through this evening and overnight. Where we have the cloud cover, sometimes murky conditions, but it's here temperatures will be at their mildest, dropping down to around 4 or 5 degrees. Further south, though, where we do get the clearer skies, the lighter breezes, temperatures down at -2, -3. So again, here the risk of frost and ice, particularly on untreated surfaces. Make our way into tomorrow morning. For many, that cloud is going to linger through the morning. Down towards southern parts of the region, here's the best chance of seeing those drier, brighter breaks developing, because over higher ground, that cloud is just about thick enough to introduce a little bit of drizzle. Temperature-wise for all of us, in the sunshine or underneath the cloud, we'll look at highs of around 6 or 7 degrees. As we head through the later part of Tuesday and into Wednesday, again, that divide very apparent. The colder air is being squeezed out the way. The rain arrives through the first part of Wednesday. Temperatures picking up to highs of around 8 or 9 degrees.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Thank you, Ross. That is it from us so far today. We are back with our late bulletin after news at 10.
And you can keep across all our stories on our website. You know the address by now, itv.com/Granada. And we're off to look for, see if Crowley's brought some mint balls back for us.
That'll be nice. Thanks for your company. See you tomorrow. Have
Bye-bye.
a great night. Bye-bye. I bet he hasn't, you know.